This poor Galapagos tortoise sits in a habitat so green and flat I'm surprised old men aren't throwing bowls at it, and it sleeps in a shelter that looks like a reject from IKEA. If I was this tortoise, I'd make myself into soup. But can we turn its Crapitat into a FABitat? Let's find out in this episode of Pimp My Habitat. Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome to Pimp My Habitat. It's a new series we're going to be doing on the channel here where you, the Geekism community, can send me your habitats that need a little bit of work and we can fancy them up on video and hopefully give people some advice along the way. There's going to be a couple of little jibes, alright, we're going to have some little jokes with people, but I massively appreciate everybody who's sending theirs in. If you would like to send yours in, you can do. All you have to do is upload your habitat to the workshop using the hashtag #PimpMyHabitat in the title or the description, and then also pop in the description a little bit about the habitat, what animal it's for, any bits that you really like about it and any bits that you really like to improve specifically. Everything else will do for you here on the video. Please bear in mind that if you have exhibits, shelters, things like this, they will not save as part of the habitat, I don't think. So if you need those saving as well as part of it, save them, put them up on the workshop, make sure you link between the two so I know what's going on. But other than that, let's get started in today's one. This is by Badger Claw. Thank you very much for Badger Claw for sending this in. They have said that this is a submission for Geekism's Pimp My Habitat. This features a Galapagos tortoise habitat, which has a small pond with a rock feature, a very poorly built handmade hard shelter. I'm mostly proud of my tiny pond. Everything else, feels lackluster. I find it difficult to make smaller habitats look interesting. That's definitely something I've seen so far. This is actually quite cute, the little pond. It's actually pretty good, and it's quite a nice level of detail. I think we'll definitely keep that, to be honest with you, maybe just sort of extend from it. But yeah, if you turn around and look at that, I mean, it just looks depressing, doesn't it? It really does. And more power to you for having a go at a hard shelter. But yeah, we definitely need something. We definitely need to give this tortoise somewhere to feel happy when he goes for a little sleep at night time. It's actually a girl, this one. I've just thrown her in here. So first of all, let's look at the absolute necessities, which actually Badger Claw here has got spot on. So if we look at our terrain, we're exactly where we need to be. Can maybe get away with a little bit more long grass, which we might use from an aesthetic point of view, but otherwise decent size for the tortoise. It's got enough hard shelter and the terrain levels are perfect. And as far as planting goes, again, we have just enough we need. You can spend a little bit more on coverage if you want to, but they're all the correct plants from the right sort of areas there as well. So technically this animal will be perfectly happy. We haven't actually got to do anything for the welfare of the animal. We just need to kind of make it look a little nicer, I think. So we're going to start with this shelter. Okay, there we go. So we've kept the wooden sort of box-like structure that Badger Claw originally went with. We've just kind of detailed it up, really, and we've kind of kept that kind of modern architecture, that modern African architecture that the game features so well. I think it's turned out pretty well. I think it's probably a little tall, if anything, but, you know, staff can get in there and clean it out quite easily without having to scrouch over. Obviously, it's much more taller than the actual little dude needs, but, yeah, overall, I think that's worked out pretty well. Now, one thing I won't be doing on this series is affecting the actual exhibit outline unless it's too small, and that's because eventually, when I'm able to blueprint these and give them back, I want to make it as easy as possible for people to just place these back down where the old ones were, so they can actually get something out of it rather than just the sort of viewing of the video. Unfortunately, I can't make blueprints at the moment, so these first few are just to sort of show the idea of the series. But what I would probably do if this was my my exhibit that I was keeping is I would take this barrier into the edge of the shelter there, like so, and then I would null barrier all of this so that the actual back wall of the shelter was what became the barrier, rather than having it just sit with this, because this is the sort of place where animals can get stuck, where litter will get collected, where poop probably will end up, and that sort of thing. So if you can get away from having these little slots here, that's even better. I'm going to leave the water in, even though he doesn't actually need it, or she doesn't actually need it, because of the water feature over there, but because that's such a small water feature, that probably wouldn't be filtered particularly well. So we are going to leave the this water one here, so they've got some water in. Now, I don't know where the front of this exhibit is, but I'm assuming with the habitat wall over there, that this is probably the front. So I'm going to bring the... actually, maybe they see all the way around, because you've got this water feature as well, but I'm going to bring the food down a little bit so they get a better shot of the creature while it's eating. Otherwise, that's all I want to do regarding enrichments. So now the last thing we need to do really is to sort out this foliage, because it really is looking a little bit lackluster, and whilst the coverage itself is good, the choice of items and placement doesn't particularly fit the turtle, in my humble opinion. So let's come up into here and come into nature. And now, if I'm right, it's South America tropical. Yeah, okay, so let's go to continent, South America. Apologies if you can hear some rumbling in the background. Somebody's doing some work next door, I think. And then biome, tropical. Yeah. Okay, so here's all the stuff we've got to play with. It's actually quite a nice selection, to be honest. So we'll bring down this so we can see it all. So we've got lots of banana palms. We've got so it is actually lots of palms and stuff. But I think actually your mangroves and your tamarinds and your little oh, they're quite big. But there is another little one, isn't there? These yellow ones. These are the ones to go for, I think. Rather than these huge tall palms that really aren't doing much in the way of shade or much else. So I actually quite like the placement of this yellow one. We're going to make it so it sits a bit better around this new exhibit, so we can just place it in somewhere like that. And the fact that it hears over the exhibit as well is quite nice there. I actually, like I say, I really like this bit here, so I'm not going to do much with it at all. I'm just going to have another little go at replacing that, just so the roots sit a little nicer in the water there. And I'm not too sure about the broken thing, but I'll go with it. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And then these, all I would say with these is they just need to sit a little nearer the rockwork and a little near the water line, because that's going to really just give you that extra bit of realism. So if we come onto here and click move, where's my menus gone? Oh man, base is going to base her, isn't it? Okay, right, here we go to nature. What I want to do is turn off align to surface. There we go. It's much easier to align to surface off with your exhibits, by the way, when you're doing nature, when you're doing all your trees and stuff. So I quite like the look of this one. I quite like the juxtaposition with the lighter colour there that we get from it. These tamarins, these ones are a bit too big, and these wimbers are huge, so we're going to be not using them. We have these lobster claws. These are what we've used over here, I think. Is it? Oh no, that's a different plant. What have we used over here? The banana palms? No? What are you then? Oh, elephant ear. They're these ones here. Okay, cool. So we're going to continue them a little bit. We're going to place a few more of them down. We're really going to lush out the place, okay? One real key thing to do, they probably best sitting next to water, those ones, so we'll bring in something like a apple tree as well. One key thing to do is always have a bit of foliage and a bit of something going on at the base of the trees, just to kind of show that that's the fertile soil, that's where stuff's growing, okay? So make sure, and also it stops that sort of stark difference between the tree sticking up out of just, you know, what is, let's be honest, just sand. So it's definitely a way to go forward with it. It's a little big. One of the big things you're going to struggle with here with such a small exhibit is that the level of foliage, a lot of it is pretty huge. We'll do something like that. There we go. And all these count towards coverage. You have to make sure that you're not going over on your coverage, despite them being not actually in the place. I actually quite like those broken things. We might get one of them in somewhere else. I'll have to think. Let's get some of this cheese plant stuff there. These would normally grow probably a bit more in sun, but we've got the sun paused at the moment, but they would look a bit better a bit further out of the sun, to be honest with you. And then I think the last thing we need to do is probably let's just see how the little one's getting on here with coverage. We've got a couple of percent to use, I think. What I think we just need is a little bit of ground coverage. Wow, these things really are huge. I was going to maybe use them for a bit of ground coverage like that, but I think that's probably a little bit over the top. We can do it with something like these instead. These candy apple bushes, they go down pretty well into the ground. And leave a little bit sticking out. So just where it'd be a little bit trickier, where the animal goes less as well. So, you know, in the corners, in the edges, that sort of thing. Obviously here where it's like a big through way, you wouldn't have so much. But then also you can get away with just a little bit around the base here, where it'd be a little tricky to cut and trim and stuff. So we can do something like that. Maybe, I don't think it needs another tree. I think it actually works quite well, relatively open. But maybe just a few more little things. And one of the key things I'm doing here with the planting is bunching, you know, making sure we've got little groups of planting rather than just sort of sporadically squeezing them. I think that's a much better way of doing it. It gives you a much more natural look. Okay, the last thing we want to do then is rocks. Rocks are your friend, especially for small exhibits like this or animals that have a low foliage tolerance. Rocks are fantastic because they don't count towards anything. You can have a million of them and they're never going to mind, which is really great. So I think we have, let's have a look what's the best going to be rocks. We've got tundra, tropical. I suppose tropical is probably the one that sort of matches this, although that is quite a dark colour scheme. But we'll go with it just because that's the one we recommend. Oh, and also, thinking of it, that's the one that we've already got in use over here. So we're going to make some nice rock work here. One of the main things I'm doing this for is one, because it looks good. It breaks up an exhibit that's always quite full. But also, I'm pretty sure that turtles are the sort of animals that are going to tortoise, excuse me. Sort of animals that are just going to chill out sometimes in the sun. Okay, so what we've got to do here is, because we are on such a small exhibit, we have to make sure that there are ways through here. Tortoise could probably manage across this rock, but we don't necessarily mean that he has to, you know. So we're going to make sure he can get around there and sort of chill out over here if he wants to. But otherwise, we can do some rock work like this. Big keys when doing rock work: never use the same rock twice in a row. So if you use a rock, get rid of it, use something else. Okay, and always rotate your rock work, because that makes such a huge difference when it comes to how it looks. Okay, that same for foliage as well, to be honest with you. What I'm actually trying to do is join these two little bits up, because I really like the water feature, and I really like the rock work on it, and I think that we need to kind of make that more of a feature. I'm going to make that that little spot there for stuff to grow in. That looks good, I think. And we definitely sort of want to accentuate the fact that this is a nice water feature that Badger Claw has done, and we can use it to our advantage. It's good. There we go, a couple more rocks there. And again, I'd be tempted to maybe try and build the rock works up at the back here and use them as part of the exhibit fencing. You don't need a huge sort of slope on them to stop a tortoise getting in there, because they are pretty rubbish at big slopes. Okay, there we go. Right, I think we're maybe done. I think maybe a little bit more rock work over here just to help break up those huge sort of swathes of not much going on. Oh no, the fuzzer here, look. It's the noisiest building we've ever had today. There is so much noise happening right now, it's crazy. These are one of my favourite rocks, these ones, because they look really good when they're in the ground. Is that ridiculous that I have a favourite rock? It probably is, isn't it? And don't feel scared about using the cladding as well. I know it's kind of made for structural work and it looks all very square, but if you just sink that in a little bit, you start to get some really nice low-lying rock there instead. And then the only thing I would do there maybe is go back to our terrain. And just making sure we're keeping on. So now we haven't got enough long grass. That's interesting. I didn't think we got rid of any, but I was going to say, actually, that works perfectly because I want to add a little bit of long grass, actually. So we'll bring the sensitivity down and the size down. But now, just kind of around where there's these big rocks again, just where it's going to be a little bit trickier for the little chap to get to. There we go, try and get it so they're not sort of poking through the rocks there. And then also, that acts as a really good way of sort of tying in the sort of fake grasses we've added with these here, and the plain terrain, so you don't get that sort of really harsh lines. There we go. There, make sure the water's looking a little bit filled in now, actually, so maybe we'd watch that. But just like here, where we've got not much space where the little fellow will go. There we go. And it still wants a bit more. Okay, so how about down here then? Just the sort of edge of these rocks again. Just keep an eye on these on this stuff clipping into the rocks here, because that's not great if you can help it. And it's tricky because it doesn't take single blades away. It just does whole chunks at once. And obviously all this here, this would all probably be grown up at the back here, where stuff doesn't get to. Probably here as well, just as you walk in. And then here, to make sure we've got some longer grass here. So I don't understand why it's got so less than it had before, to be honest, because we didn't seem to. There we go. Just look like that. I don't like that lump in the middle, unfortunately. That's going to have to go. There we go. Awesome. I think that's a pretty good fix. So again, if you would like your habitat fixed so that other people and yourself can learn some really great tips for making the perfect habitats in this game, all you have to do is add them to the workshop with the hashtag #PimpMyHabitat, remembering that buildings won't come with them. So make sure you add the buildings as well and let me know somehow that they both need to be sorted. And whilst I will make a little bit of fun of you, this is all done in the best of intentions. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, be good.